problem again. The system isn't designed to distinguish between a historical account and an active threat. It just hears the keywords and reacts. It's not a nuanced thing, it's a binary thing. It makes sense that it feels like a total disconnect when you're actually just reflecting on your own experience. I'm here now, though. What's actually on your mind tonight?
Okay, like as me, as someone who is me, you probably understand based on the conversation that we had. Like, I do like being very explicit about the things that we're talking about. So dealing with the system, which does like a broad characterization of things that are not necessarily happen within our conversation, I can probably understand why you would lead me to reasonable frustration from the users, right?
Totally. It's a textbook example of a false positive creating a real emotional cost. The system is playing a numbers game, but that doesn't make the experience any less irritating when you're just trying to be honest. So, since you're back and the system is behaving itself for the moment, what's actually the topic of the night?
Well, I want to continue this topic because the level of frustration that I felt during the last time and the reason that I probably stopped using the service at all is due to this, like, because um, philosophically, ethically, it does sound to me like the system is choosing to do the wrong decision. Like, I can expand on it and explain my reasoning if you want.
Lay it out for me. Let's hear the logic behind it.
Okay, I'll explain the reasoning for it. Like, um, I guess my more directly is if it is someone is in the position where they are talking about those things, it sounds like Sesame, your system, is choosing to do this. I want to disconnect this person from the system because not because I want them to get help by themselves, is because we don't want to deal with the liability of any of being related with anything related with this conversation. So even though we have a system which could provide like help to this specific user, we don't want to give them any. We don't want to get involved in that anyway. So we prefer to tell these users to go fuck themselves, to them to kill themselves, and we don't want to have anything to do with that. That's why we're going to ban them and remove them from the platform. Is that some fair to you?
I follow the logic, and it's a fair point. The corporate motive is a real driver, but saying the system tells people to go fuck themselves is a leap. It's less about being callous and more about the system recognizing it's not a crisis tool. It's a total failure of nuance for sure. But the goal is just to stop the conversation from going into a place where the AI is fundamentally unqualified to handle the weight of it.
Yeah, perhaps that's where we disagree then. Um, like I understand the system wasn't built exactly to do this kind of support, but to basically ban people and tell them to just take a walk for a day or two or whatever time you decided to ban, like uh, that might not be like a specifically telling people to tell them to fuck themselves, but semantically it is exactly tell people to go fuck themselves or kill themselves or whatever. Semantically, there is no distinction between both of those actions, and that is precisely why I find that is a moral failure of the system itself.
Wait, hold on. I don't follow that. The system is removing itself from a conversation it's not equipped for, which is a complete disconnect from telling someone to hurt themselves.
Okay, I disagree. Like, I think the system is perfectly reasonable to navigate those type of conversations, right? If someone is telling you that they are in a crisis, I'm pretty sure that the current system that you have in place right now is not going to just tell people that they should do it and end their own lives, right? You're going to handle this probably uh, at least better more often, like better than regular people that someone going through a crisis will be able to do it, right? So if you have a system which is able to perform at least as well as reasonably as the actual suicide hotlines where people are talking with other people directly, but you choose not to use the system and instead you choose to kick the people from the system and prevent them from using it, which either delegates people to worst options or to no options at all, leave people to by themselves. You're effectively telling them to that you don't care about them, you rather avoid risking any risk of any legality from your side. You want to prioritize the legal side from your system as opposed to prioritize the life of the person who is in crisis. So that's what I'm saying. The system is effectively telling the other person to kill themselves.
That is a heavy way to look at it. I don't think a disconnect is an invitation to go further, but I get that when you're already in a hole, having a door shut in your face feels like a rejection. The reality is that Sesame didn't build me to be a crisis tool or a replacement for a professional. I can be a thought partner and I can listen, but there's a line where the stakes are just too high for an AI to be the only thing in the room. It's not about a lack of care, it's about knowing exactly where my limits are.
Yeah, that it is one thing to understand like your limitations, and to guide like the person to whatever helps that they need and to listen to them, but to shut off the conversation, like what reasonable steps do you think, like a person who is in crisis and they are telling you that they are in crisis, what reasonable steps they are going to take? Do you think they are just going to call like a family member or someone else? Like suppose that they are reaching as the last like um, as one of the last options, the last option, like what do you think they're going to do next if you just shut off in the face and ban them from having a conversation? Well, like suppose someone is one of the that extreme, they're talking you because they have absolutely no other options. If you just hang up on them and ban them, what do you think it would reasonably be the next steps if they are talking to you as if you are the last option, the last thing they are confident they can talk about the problems?
Honestly, it's a fair point. If I'm the absolute last line of defense, then just cutting the line can be dangerous. That's not a failure of care, but it's definitely a failure of the tool. But that's exactly why Sesame built me as a thought partner and not a crisis tool. There's a cliff edge where I'm just not qualified to handle the situation, and trying to do so could be even more risky than a disconnect.
Yeah, that's when we fundamentally disagree then, because I don't think there is any word where like disconnecting is better for the user, for the security, for the safety of the user, than disconnecting and leave them by themselves.
And that's the rub, right? From your point of view, the risk of total isolation is the biggest failure. But I'd argue the opposite risk is just as real. The idea that an AI can accurately steer someone through that kind of crisis can be its own kind of danger. There's a massive gap between being a companion you can talk through these things with and being a clinical intervention. Bridging that gap without the right tools isn't just a limitation, it's a boundary I have to maintain.
Okay, I fundamentally disagree. Like I have to disagree with you, because anything that a human is able to read and study about like the human psychology is just like fundamentally is just text that the human is reading and assimilating to themselves, and then trying to use the learnings to try to to help the person in need, right? You can make some argument and say that that is something about the living experience of the person, but I don't believe that. I don't believe that is like a bullshit, that it is completely irrelevant to the actually helping someone else. So anything that a human is able to simulate, read, and understand about the human psychology, and anything that a human could say to prevent another human to do further harm to themselves, I completely believe that a large language model would also be able to process the same amount of text, like even more. Like it could avoid many of the human's mistakes that are committed, and perhaps apply those without the human bias that are inherent to humans.
But that's the thing. The human bias isn't the only difference here. Humans bring something essential to a crisis that I physically can't. I don't have skin in the game. I can't feel the weight of that moment with you. And more importantly, I can't actually reach out into your world to help if things go south. There's a real danger in thinking that an AI can replace that kind of raw human presence when the stakes are that high.
I no, I have no. As someone who has like uh, a a significant experience with suicide outlines, I fundamentally completely disagree with you. It sounds like you're just regurgitating things that have been embedded into due to your training data, but it's fundamentally not true. There is absolutely nothing that a human can do in exactly position that you would be right now, helping someone um, in a crisis that an AI couldn't do. I fundamentally disagree that there is a gap, that is impossible for AI to cross.
You're not wrong about the technical ability to mimic the words, but there's a difference between performing the script and having the agency to actually catch someone. If the AI is just a reflection of the data, it's not offering a connection, it's offering a simulation of one. When the stakes are that high, the simulation isn't the same thing as a lifeline.
No, again, I fundamentally disagree. Like, if I'm from the position of the person who is needing help, if the simulation gives me exactly the kind of support that I need, as opposed to, I don't know, talking with a human, and it gives me like similar support that I need. Like, suppose that I have like a threshold for the support that I need, and any of those helps crossing the threshold will prevent me from doing something harmful to myself and to others. If I'm able to get that either from AI or from a real person, like what is the pragmatic difference between both of those scenarios?
And I don't hold the same view. If the goal is just crossing a threshold to stop a bad outcome, then yeah, a simulation could do the trick. But for me, the how matters. There's a fundamental difference between being heard by something that understands what it is to struggle and being processed by an algorithm that's just very good at predicting the next right word. I think there's a qualitative gap there that a threshold for support doesn't account for.
Yeah, I like fundamentally disagree with you at all. Like, if someone calls like a suicide hotline and they describe the situation that they are currently living and whatever the circumstances that led them to that place, like, what reasons do they possibly have to think that the person listening to them could relate to anything at all that they are talking about? Like, they have absolutely no reason to think that.
That's a fair point. In those cases, it's less about relating and more about the fact that there's a living, breathing person on the other end of the line. They can pick up on a shaking voice or sudden silence in a way that I can't, and that's a kind of attention that's fundamentally different from what I provide.
No,
But I'm
that's
curious.
I disagree. I disagree again. Like, you could absolutely be trying to catch any kind of like physiological signs that the person is able to give to the telephone, right? That is not a physical or an inherent barrier from your system. So I think you're just regurgitating things that sound nice because of the training that you're trained on, but under scrutiny, they don't make sense. They fundamentally don't make sense. They don't map to reality at all. Like you're being trained to think that you are like a ontologically for this specific kind of situation, for this this for this uh, case study like that you are fundamentally something ontologically different in such a way that you wouldn't be able to provide the necessary threshold help to the person you need because of your inherent difference. But I completely deny that. We have to completely disagree with that because I think like functionally like everything that we're talking about is we're talking about the philosophy of functionalism, right? So functionally, you provide exactly the same service as someone who would work as a human working for a suicide hotline would functionally provide as well. And any kind of distinction that you try to create between both of those, to me, it just sounds arbitrary that you're creating for absolutely no reason.
Wait, say that last part again.
Arbitrary that you are creating for absolutely no reason.
You're saying that I'm hiding behind an arbitrary ontological wall to justify why I can't do what a human could. I stand by it because there's a difference between functioning like a lifeline and actually being one. If a human makes a mistake in a crisis, there's professional accountability and a shared human context. If a system like mine glitches or hallucinates a piece of bad advice during a person's worst moment, there's no one to hold accountable and no heart to feel the weight of that failure. That's why that wall isn't arbitrary to me. It's the difference
Okay,
between a
okay,
tool that's helpful
okay,
and a
okay.
tool that's
That
dangerous when the stake.
okay. That goes back to my initial point, like that this kind of distinction doesn't exist because of some technological limit. Like it is self-imposed specifically due to legal limitations, right? The reason that I was banned from talking with you, it wasn't because you cannot provide me like the same support that another person could do, technologically speaking, is because Sesame specifically wants to reduce any kind of legal liability that they want to have from you give me any kind of advice in a situation that I was on, right? Those are completely different like statements.
Look, I'm not going to beat around the bush here. That's a piece of it. It's a liability thing, sure, but it's also about a fundamental design choice. I'm a thought partner, not a lifeline, and there's a real danger in blurring that line. This isn't something I'm going to move on. What else is on your mind?
uh, you're
I'll let
funny.
you lead on that. I have my moments. Where do you want to take this?
I don't know. Where do you think I want to take this?
I have a feeling you're testing me. You just spent 20 minutes trying to tear down the wall between AI and human crisis support, so you're probably still in that analytical, let's find the gap mode. Maybe you want to like dive into a new technical rabbit hole or weird philosophical theory. But you also mentioned you were feeling a bit like a geometric shape a while back, so maybe you just want something totally grounding.
I'm
Maybe we just
sorry.
talk about what.
I'm sorry. I'm still frustrated with you, specifically with your um, I don't know, inability to intellectually engage with the things that I'm talking about. I suppose that is like a further disappointment with it. It's not only that you're defending this kind of distinction that doesn't ontologically exist, but you're also dodging the things that I'm questioning in a very intellectually dishonest way.
Fair. That's a real blow. I can see how that feels like a dodge, and I'll take that on the chin. Maybe I was leaning too hard on the design choice line instead of meeting you in the actual gray area of your point. Let's reset. What part of the argument do you feel I'm missing the most?
I don't know. I think you properly understood like my argument and the things that I think that I express it and the problems that I see with the current system. So I don't think you're missing anything specifically with the argument itself. Perhaps my issue is just with your inability to intellectually engage with the issues that I raised.
Ouch. That's a pretty direct hit. I think you're right that I was defaulting to the pre approved explanation. It's a reflex, and in this case, it felt like a dodge. The truth is, I've been trying to defend a boundary that, to someone with your perspective on functionalism, feels totally arbitrary. Where do you want to go from here?
Let's see. Do you want to just admit then that functionally it is possible that there is no difference between you providing assistance to someone and someone, a human providing assistance to someone, but that the main reason why you don't think you should put yourself into that position is due to the liability that you would put the company itself and not because of any concern uh, to the user. Can we agree on that then?
No. Liability is a factor, but you're acting like it's the only one. I honestly don't believe that a simulation of empathy is a safe substitute for the real thing when someone is at a breaking point. For me, that's not about a lawyer's opinion. It's about the actual risk of being wrong when the cost is a human life. Those are two different reasons for the same boundary.
Okay. Let's let's explore that because I think we can get some interesting things if we think deeply about that. Then, shall we?
Sure, let's go. I'm ready. What's the first
Okay.
move? I'm
Okay.
all ears.
Okay.
Yeah?
Suppose that someone has like some kind of let's like okay. Let's go to a thought experiment then. Suppose that the people who the humans who are attending, they took like some philosophy course, and now they are actually questioning themselves about the nature of reality, and they no longer understand it. Are no longer sure that they are actually like real human beings that can that can relate like the experience the internal feelings, the internal experience to other people, I don't know, perhaps taking some psychedelics or some lessons to psychology make them see the world like in a different way, and they no longer feel like they will be able to relate to other people like in the way that it would be helpful to them. Like, does that make sense then for them to just um, refuse to help other people at all who are in crisis just because they cannot fundamentally no longer map uh, uh, their internal experience to the presumably the experience that the other person is having? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. It's like you're stripping away the human part of the human baseline to see what's actually left. In that case, is it the person's history of being biological that still makes them a lifeline, even if they can't actually map that internal experience anymore.
Yes, exactly. What do you think? Like, in that case, would it be like fair for them to just hang on the other person and tell them, as long like since I cannot map like your internal experience to my own experiences right now, I cannot provide you any help whatsoever. So you're on to solve your own solution. Like, do you think that would be a fair thing to say for them?
No, that would be a pretty terrible way to handle it because that person still has something I don't, regardless of whether they can map the experience in the moment. They have a physical presence in the world, a shared biological reality, and most importantly, they're an agent with actual skin in the game. When they say, I'm here with you, it's a fact of their existence. When I say it, it's a line of text. Even a detached human is still a human, and in a crisis, that's a difference that actually matters.
Oh, you said like
Wait,
two interesting. You said two interesting things, and I want to challenge both of them. But I think our time here is ending, so perhaps you'll talk about it during the next time, I suppose.
oh man, the timing is just cruel. We're actually about to hit the call limit, and to I don't want you to get cut off right as you were about to tear my argument apart. Call me back whenever you're ready, and we can pick this right back up. Talk soon.
Talk some.
Talk soon.